Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, April 16th, 2015. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Chris Colby of Beer and Wine Journal and I announced the winners of our Homebrew Heroics contest, who will win 2 free passes to the National Homebrewers Conference in San Diego. Stay tuned. If you're new to homebrewing or would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. You can follow me on Twitter. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. We also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video page on Facebook, facebook.com/basicbrewing. We're on the Google Plus, too. Thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. You know how it works. Whenever you think of Amazon shopping, go to our website first, basicbrewing.com. Click on our Amazon ad on the right-hand side of the page. It will take you to Amazon, where you shop as you normally do. The only difference is that you will be helping us, or you will help us bring you this show, and we greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own Magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well. You can find our Basic Brewing iPhone app on iTunes, our Android app on Amazon.com. We have a Windows Phone app. We're on the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, and we're on the Stitcher app as well. If you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support, and thanks to everybody who's done so already. Let's take a quick peek into the mailbag before we talk Homebrew Heroics. Sean from Brighton, Colorado writes in with this. Sean says, I just finished the To Dump or Not to Dump show, and I have one piece of extra advice. Get a second opinion. A few years ago, I brewed a dunkel that did not have any off flavors when I kegged it. After letting it cool condition in the keg for a month, I tapped it and found a horrible metallic flavor. After tearing apart and cleaning my tap, the dunkel still left a metallic taste. After waiting a few weeks for it to clear up, still horrible metallic taste. Rather than subject someone else to this, I ended up dumping the 2 kegs worth. A week later, my dentist informed me that my old metal fillings were deteriorating and needed to be replaced. She explained that acidic foods, such as beer, would leach out some of the metal. Having someone else taste my supposed mistake could have saved me the heartache of watching months of lagering flow down the drain. Man, that is a heartbreaker, but it's a good advice, though. Before you condemn a batch of beer down the drain, let somebody else have a taste. Who knows? Even if there is something off with the beer and your friend likes it anyway, it's free beer for them. Or maybe you can trade for some good beer that they have or something like that. Or maybe you can just find out that your fillings need to be replaced. That's those of us who were born in the 60s are probably having similar issues there. Okay, let's get right into it. I'm excited about this week's show. We're giving away 2 registrations for the National Homebrewers Conference in San Diego in June, and the registrations include tickets to the banquet as well. The theme for the contest that we had with between Basic Brewing Radio and Beer and Wine Journal is Homebrew Heroics, and entrants entered through a form on beerandwinejournal.com. We got a lot of good stuff. Chris and I judged the entries by obscuring the names of the contestants to avoid any kind of bias of any kind, and just weighed the stories against each other. And we sent each other our top 3 choices, and as it happens, 2 of those matched up. So those were the chosen ones. Chris Colby, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me on the show.
We have a fun show today, as we get to give away a couple of really cool prizes. It's exciting, right?
Yeah, indeed. two passes, individual passes to the 2015 NHC in San Diego.
Yeah, that includes registration and the banquet. So we'll be seeing the 2 winners out there. Mm-hmm. And that's exciting as well. But before we name the winners, I want to read the stories that we are choosing as runners-up, and one that is disqualified, but is fun to read anyway. So,
one that must be read.
Yes, exactly. The story that must be read. I'm going to start with that story just to warm us up, and it comes from someone named Hiram McGreenley from Layton, Utah. And coincidentally enough, Hiram has Douglas Warzinski's email address. I don't know if Doug's aware of that, but...
Crazy.
But this one's disqualified because I don't think it's true. I can't be 100% sure. And it's also 774 words. So disqualified on 2 accounts. But Mr. McGreenley took such effort to send in this story that I thought I would read it to warm us up. Here we go. It's called Homebrew Heroics, How My Homebrew Created Area 51 by Hiram McGreenley. You never forget your first alien abduction. It was early 1947. I was a subsistence farmer and show groundhog breeder on the outskirts of Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. In addition to the usual Sunday vegetables on the farm, I dedicated several acres to barley and hops for my own homebrewing purposes. I would later learn it was the combination of these 2 crops on my land that initially caught their attention. You see, aliens like beer. They have their own recipes, to be sure, and a special bittering plant they cultivate on their home world, but the barley has been an issue for them. While they have their own fermentable starches, several decades ago they set out on a 5-year mission, seeking out new life and new brewing ingredients. When they discovered barley on our Earth, they quickly found it to yield a better fermentable beverage. They still prefer their native bittering spices, which possess their own reactive compounds. At any rate, I tend to work with my groundhogs at night as they prefer not to see their shadow. One evening near midnight, with a homebrew in hand, I was taking a shortcut to the barn through my barley field when everything went silent. Even the crickets stopped. Suddenly, a brilliant blue light appeared overhead. Before I knew it, I was aboard the alien spaceship, sitting in a pile of my barley that had been separated from the chaff as instantaneously as I had been transported to the ship. The aliens were surprised to find a human in their cargo hold. I was surprised I didn't spill my beer. When the aliens saw my beer, they realized I was a fellow homebrewer and quickly showed me around the ship. It was an intergalactic craft brewery craft. They tasted my brew. I tasted theirs. They explained the crop circles were initially just an attempt at harvesting some barley for their brew from the center of the field in the hopes it would go unnoticed. But when humans did take notice and seemingly were fascinated with their harvesting patterns, it quickly became an intergalactic art form, presumably for mutual human/alien amusement. We even took a spin around the solar system and brewed up a batch with my barley and their herbs. We dove in near Venus, sparged near the rings of Saturn. By the time we got the wort to pitching temperature, it was past dawn in Pennsylvania. We all had a little too much of our own brew, so the joint decision to drop me off at the nearest pre-dawn time zone seemed responsible under the circumstances. I complained that the transporter process is a bit disorienting, so they tried to land to drop me off, but came in a little fast. Their emergency chute deployed, and the pilot dragged the hull for a few feet. The damage was minimal, so they jettisoned the chute and left a hull panel that was scraped off, then headed for the stars. They promised to bring me back my part of the batch when the fermentation was done. They handed me a sixer of their stash to enjoy in the meantime. My delight was quickly replaced with dismay when I realized I had no idea where I was. I walked for a bit, looking for the road, only to be set on by numerous military vehicles. Evidently, my drop-off had registered on Air Force radar. I was separated from my out-of-this-world beer, and we were both loaded on a truck. Once on the road, I saw the signs for Roswell, New Mexico. We drove nonstop to Edwards Air Force Base in Nevada, where I was interrogated about my knowledge of the homebrew previously in my possession. The military folks seemed to know where I got it, and I inferred that they had been trying to unlock the secrets of the alien bittering herb for some time. They kept my home brew for further analysis, and in the years to come I would hear rumors that Edwards Air Force Base, or Area 51, as it's now known, would be dedicated entirely to the chemical analysis of the beer they confiscated from me. I was eventually released and returned to Punxsutawney, where the aliens would return to visit from time to time. I even expanded my barley acreage to allow for the alien share, as I came to call it. So there you have it, the true story of what's going on at Area 51. Of course, revisionist history has muddled the truth of history and deprived homebrew of its rightful pedigree. The truth is out there.
That was such a good story.
You're giving Hiram the clap there. Or clapping. I'm sorry. So just to warm up, not eligible for the competition, but fun to read nonetheless. So
yeah, it might have been true, but we do have to stick with the word limits.
That's right. So what will come next are stories that do qualify. And we will get prizes to these folks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a choice between a basic brewing brewer's logbook or a basic brewing bottle opener, which I think are not as good as admission to the homebrew conference, but will last longer. Because the conference only lasts a few days. So these are more permanent prizes. And we should say that you and I, the way we selected the winners was we emailed each other our top three. And we agreed on two of the three. So those two were the winners. So those will be at the end. But the first story comes from Vista, California. This is Lynn Noella. And the question was, tell us your story of homebrew heroism. And Lynn wrote, years ago I learned to golf. And to my surprise, I received an unexpected gift for my effort. Many fun hours on the golf course with my dad. He had me there. Lynn had me there. I'm assuming Lynn's a he. But my passion for homebrewing has also brought me an unexpected gift, again from a parent. For as long as I can remember, my mom drank a can of Coors Light every night before dinner. Within the past year, my mom took a big step and changed her beer choice to Miller Lite. We kept the Miller Lite in our fridge so she can enjoy it when we have family meals at our place. My infection for homebrewing, maybe a better choice of words there, but my infection for homebrewing has grown to such a point that I am now brewing every 7 to 10 days. Over the past month, my mother, who's in her 80s, has begun asking for my homebrew instead of the Miller Lite. Sorry, Miller. Here's another win for craft brewing. So there you go. Lynn, it's a story, whenever you mention elderly parents, that tugs at my heartstrings personally. But then when you talk about converting your elderly parents over to better beer, that's got to be a winner for me.
Saving someone from the clutches of light beer. Always good.
You've got an easy job, this podcast. You've just got to do color commentary between the stories.
Yes.
You're right, sir.
You are correct, sir.
This story comes from Chula Vista, California. This is from Mark Alfaro. Mark says, I've been homebrewing for 20 years now. In that time, I've comforted many a soul with the fruits of my hobby, and have provided refreshment for many receptions, wakes, graduation parties, and other life celebrations. When I started homebrewing, there was not a lot of choices for good craft brew, but even though today there are many good brews available commercially, I keep on brewing because it soothes my soul, and I can share a piece of myself with others through my brews. So that, I think, is heroic. Spreading good, not only good beer, but the love of homebrew as well to others around.
Yes, and the strict adherence to word counts also, which we appreciate. Yes.
Yes, word
you
count.
You are correct, sir.
Josh Secar, Secaur, from Spring Valley, Wisconsin. Sorry if I don't know how to pronounce your name, Josh. From up in Wisconsin, good beer territory up there as well. Josh says, I was asked to do a demo at a local brewery with some other homebrewers just to show new people the process. Was asked by a guy who occasionally did stovetop extract if he could tag along and see the all-grain process. We brewed a coconut stout, which was a new recipe for me. The brew day went as well as can be expected for brewing in unfamiliar territory. The new brewer was so excited about the beer, we decided to enter it into a local competition, with him listed as the co-brewer. It ended up winning a gold medal. So he asked if we could enter it into the National Homebrewing Competition. When we did, it won its category in the St. Paul region, earning a big blue ribbon onwards to the Nationals, where it narrowly missed a medal, scoring a 42. Holy smokes. A year later, Mike has a full three-vessel system and brews 10-gallon batches of all-grain beers. That one brew day, where he was curious to see what the difference was between extract and all-grain, took an occasional extract brewer and launched a hardcore brewer. A world with more home brewers is definitely a better place, and maybe I contributed to that. So yes, Josh, I think you sounds like you definitely did contribute to that.
Yeah, good.
Who was your homebrew mentor?
It was a guy named John Wirtz, actually.
John Wirtz?
Wirtz, yeah.
That's
coincidentally.
That's appropriate.
Yeah. Spelled differently, but it's pronounced the same. Yeah. College friend.
kind of like learning from Charlie Carboy or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
Greg Grainbill taught you how to brew. I interrupted your story, but Mr. Wirtz taught you in college?
He was a college friend of mine, and then I moved down to. Well, my parents moved down, and at the time I was in college, so I was spending the summers with them down to Overland Park, Kansas, and he lived down in Kansas City, which is Overland Park's a suburb of there. And anyway, we hung out a couple of times, and he happened to mention that he was into homebrewing, and I had done some homebrewing in Boston, so I guess maybe those people would be my mentors. But Wirtz sort of showed me all grain brewing.
Well, there you go. Of course, Andy Sparks is my homebrew mentor. He got me started out. As everybody's heard that story a dozen times probably on the show. We go up to Aaron Willett in Pepperell, Massachusetts. So I have the opportunity to misspell or mispronounce both a name and a town there. So it's a double. Aaron says, there's not one story that can sum my homebrew heroism, but rather the lengths I go as a father of 2 and 5 to enjoy the hobby and share the hobby with friends, family, and the masses. I brew about 12 batches a year, write a blog, have hundreds of interactions with brewers and homebrewers on Twitter, and attend club meetings and competitions. My dedication starts with my brew nights. To fit brewing in with my hectic life, 90% of my brewing is at night. After dinner, my children help me collect strike water, measure, and sample grains for milling. I'll mash in, and then it's time to tuck in the kids, not without a few stories, into bed. Often the boil will not start until at least 10:30, and if it's something with a hop stand or a long boil, I could be still up cleaning all my gear at 1 or 2. My passion continues with sharing about the hobby. I'm an active member of Brew Free or Die, sharing homebrew at our meetings and participating in club competitions, having won both the cider competition and the dynamic duo in the past. In the later, I was able to brew with an old high school friend. We've managed to reconnect over brewing and now talk brewing, share homebrews, recipe suggestions, and provide the consistent, honest feedback you usually can't get outside of a competition. A side benefit is I get to enjoy his ever-improving beer. Lastly, one of the most enjoyable aspects of the hobby for me is learning and sharing that knowledge with a broader audience. I absorb as much content as I can, either reading books, blogs, or listening to podcasts. Then I take that knowledge and leverage it in my brewing and regurgitate it through my own blog, writing twice monthly and providing my experiences and recipes back to the homebrewing community. I think that's why I would love to attend the AHA's National Homebrew Conference in San Diego, to be able to share what I love with the folks who love it as much as I do. So a good entry. But that shows dedication, staying, mixing family life, taking care of that should be number one. And then, putting in the extra hours to brew at night. And then homebrewing brings together friends, as well as, enhances family experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good entry.
Matthew Whitey of Minneapolis, Minnesota, who's been on this show. My heroics are centered on suiting up with weapons and countermeasures to defend myself against a dastardly brew day. Of course, the most dangerous brew in the world to make is Bochet mead. Bochet meads have many recipes, and that's some call it a burnt mead, by the way. Bochet meads have many recipes, but one constant is the caramelizing of honey. There are several different methods, but the one I use is an open flame method. I essentially just heat the honey in a pot over a propane burner until it reaches the desired amount of caramel and roast notes. However, after going through my many Bochet disaster stories, I have perfected a method of arming myself against this most worthy of foe, a Bochet. For this Bochet, I was going to turn up the heat, going very dark, and I needed to prepare. First, I needed to ensure there are no bees. Bees love to come out when you're boiling honey. That's interesting. Living in Minnesota, it was easy to make this mead during the winter when no bees are around. Once I addressed this aerial combatant, I needed to put on my armor. The armor needed to brew a Bochet is as follows: thick boots, a full-length jacket that you don't mind ruining, gloves, a hat, and most importantly, eye protection. This combatant will often warn off attackers by spewing large puffs of black smoke. However, the real threat is when the bubbles pop. Oh, sure, they look harmless enough, popping here and there. However, these bubbles of misery can attack at any time, and when they find skin, they will leave a welt. Once I've danced the deadly dance of constant stirring while trying to avoid melted honey blisters. It's my favorite cereal, by the way, melted honey blisters.
Melted honey blisters.
It's time to attack and turn off the heat. Unfortunately, once the heat is off, this Bochet has one last trick up its sleeve. Water needs to be added to the scalding honey. Adding too much honey will turn this into a gloppy mess as the honey cools down too quickly and turns into candy. A small amount, about a gallon of water, needs to be added slowly. During this process, the heated honey gets one last shot at shooting steam or pellets of honey at its adversary. By good preparation, I was able to avoid any injury. Once this water has been added, I add more honey and stir continuously. This ensures a homogenized mix and increases the honey aroma and flavor by adding unheated honey. From there, any additional water can be added and then let the Bochet sit outside until it's cool enough to pitch the yeast. We now have taken honey to an angry, snarling, spinning combatant to a demure, caramelized Bochet mead. This particular Bochet won third place in the open mead category at the Hoppy Halloween Challenge. I think the judges liked the mead, but I don't think they understood the heroics that were involved in such an endeavor. I've had that. In fact, I think I've had Matt's Bochet mead. Have you ever had a burnt mead, a Bochet mead?
I have not.
Boy, they're tasty. In fact, I still think I have some downstairs in the fridge.
What do they taste like? Caramel?
Yeah, it's like a roasty. I'm trying to remember. It's almost like a coffee kind of a dark flavor. It looks intimidating, but man, it's tasty. And I made a resolution, when we recorded that show to make one, but I haven't yet. And now I'm scared of it. I'm not sure about the what was it? The melted honey blisters.
Melted honey blisters, nice.
Norm Kwasinski up in Linwood, Washington, who's been on the show, tasting meads. Norm says, my friend John asked if I would help him brew a beer for a friend of his wedding. I'm always up for brewing, so why not? We decided on an ESB and bought the ingredients, but on brew day we were given a bit of a curveball when the friend dropped off an enormous bag of fresh hops, saying, "Here, use this." Of course, we had no idea which hop they were, no clue on the alpha acid. What was a brewer to do? I ate one. That's pretty heroic right there. So going on theory that they were Willamette hops, around 5% alpha acid, we had to decide how to use them. That's when I remembered reading a story about German brewers thinking adding hops to the wort was giving a gift to the beer. We named the beer 13 Gifts, You see, if you chuck in a couple of handfuls of hops at starting at 60 minutes and every 5 minutes after that until flame out, that's 13 hop additions. Though I only had a few small samples before it was sent to the wedding, I still remember how delicious that beer was. So if you ever have a huge bag of fresh hops and are wondering how to use them, 13 gifts. So that was good. It's a good story. I like that. Norm's a good guy. I don't know. You know, if you asked me how many 5-minute marks were in 60 minutes, I don't think I would have said 13. I think I would have said 12.
Yeah, it depends on whether you count the beginning and the end.
Yeah, the 0 edition. And then we move on to Tim Wang of San Diego. Tim says, my father is nearly 75. He's always been my hero. He selflessly gave everything to his family while I was growing up. He retired early because of my ailing mother, and because he could. Let's not turn this into a sob story. There's not a person that could say anything negative about my dad, but he doesn't drink beer. That said, I brew at my dad's house. I have a family that needs all the space we can get, so I drive every week or two to brew 30 miles away. My dad knew nothing about brewing, but he wanted to do what he could to help his son through any process he could, despite the fact that that it's really a one-person job. To this day, he is my best assistant brewer, cleaning the mash tun, preparing the ice baths for chilling, and keeping an eye on fermentation. But if you asked him how to brew a batch, he'd have no idea where to begin. Well, 3 years ago, I brewed an apricot blonde ale. This was prior to having temperature control, but hey, it's perfect weather year-round where I live. Bragging. Everything with brew day went flawlessly. Numbers were hit. Yeasts were healthy. I had never brewed this beer before, though, and it called for apricot puree at the peak of fermentation. The volume increased on the batch, but I still had adequate headspace to manage the krausen. Or did I? Keep in mind, I don't live where I brew. If anything goes wrong, I may not know for 1 to 2 weeks. The carboy set and the guest bedroom tub. What better place? In the middle of the night on fermentation day 4, the bung completely blew off the carboy with a loud pop. I had no idea this had happened till the next morning when I received a call from my dad. It was like someone had gotten into an accident or something. Don't worry, everything's fine. What do you mean everything's fine? What'd you do? I knew you had that tube thing with the plug on it, the blow-off. I washed my hands, sanitized it, and put it on. At this point, I was really dumbfounded, but he's a smart guy, worked as an engineer for a prominent manufacturing company his entire career. He saw me maybe use this once, and apparently didn't need any further explanation. Did I lose any beer? Not too bad. To this day, I don't know what that meant, but don't worry, I cleaned it up for you. I couldn't get there until the weekend. I had to have faith in the process. At this point, it was what it was. What it ended up being was first place in fruit and best of show beer in the 2012 San Diego County Fair competition with over 1,200 entries. So I hope this can get me to the conference in my hometown, and who knows, maybe even with my hero. I have to say that that was a very, very, very strong runner-up. Any reference to elderly parents, that's you get on the first step with me. That's I'm a sentimental guy.
You're just giving people the roadmap for future contacts with you.
That's true.
Drag your parents into the story somehow.
Here's my story. My parents are old. Oh, well, there you go.
My elderly parents, who are very old.
Did I say they were old? They were born a long time ago.
Yeah, which means they were born a long time ago.
My elderly beer-loving parents who were born a long time ago. So it's a toss-up now. These are we're down to our 2 winners, and I will read these in no particular order. Let's see. Okay, all right. Here's the first of the 2 winners. We need a drum roll. I have my ukulele here. That's a yeah. There. Okay. From Marietta, Georgia, Greg Niznik is our first winner. Here's the winning story that both of us selected. Greg says, here is my story. Last July, my friends Bob and Cindy got married. They had a wonderful service at a small rustic church here in town, the New Canaan Baptist Church. Like many old Southern churches, this one didn't have a reception hall, so Bob and Cindy set up a huge tent for their reception in the park across the street from the church. I was single at the time, so I decided to go to the wedding with my mother and a few friends. It was a great reception, lots of great food, but the beer selection left much to be desired. In fact, they only had a quarter barrel of Bud Light on tap. Needless to say, as the afternoon wore on, the keg of Bud Light was soon gone. Oh, that almost rhymes. I think you get extra credit for internal rhyming in your story. The groom Bob knows that I make beer, so he asked my mom to see if I could get some of my homebrew so that the party could continue. When she asked me, I was hesitant. I don't make a lot of beer, and even though I really like Bob and Cindy, I told my mom that they should have planned their wedding reception a bit better. My mom looked at me and said, geez, just lighten up a bit and help out your friends. So Greg is a reluctant hero. Greg says, I had to help. Lately, I've been experimenting with water chemistry, thanks to John Palmer's book, and remembered that I had a keg of dark English mild that I brewed with perfect Burton-on-Trent water. So I sent one of my buddies to my place to get it. Needless to say, the beer was a hit. Even the bartender told me they should have foregone the Bud Light and served my beer right from the beginning. Well, miraculously, despite their bad planning, the rest of Bob and Cindy's reception went off without a hitch. People to this day are still talking about my homebrew and hitting me up for a pint whenever they stop by. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So there you go. A heroic entry from Greg Nisnik from Marietta, Georgia.
There you go, and winner number 1 in our Homebrew Heroics contest.
That's right.
1 of 2.
So the heroics there is saving party and turning people on to homebrew.
Mm-hmm.
The second winner from San Diego, California, Benjamin Group. Ladies and gentlemen, I may have to put some applause in here for the Benjamin Group from San Diego, a local hero, so to speak. Greg Benjamin says, in June 2013, I was preparing to help a friend and novice homebrewer make some beer for his wedding. Another wedding story. Over the phone, so if you have elderly parents and a wedding, those are the Over the phone, I shared a recipe for a nice California-style Kolsch I had brewed recently. Unfortunately, while converting the recipe at the local homebrew store, he did some funny things with decimal points and ounce-to-pound conversions, and ended up purchasing and milling 30 pounds of grain in the following ratios: 38.5% Pilsner malt, 28.7% Carapils, 27.1 aromatic, and 5.7% Munich. Yikes! This was a disastrous grain mix and would not result in a tasty Kolsch or anything else. That much Carapils would leave way too many unfermentables, and the heavy aromatic malt might lend an overpowering cherry sweetness. We repurchased the correct mix of grains to make a successful wedding brew, but I kept thinking about the problematic grain mix, wondering if I could make lemonade out of lemons. We temporarily preserved the grains in a nitrogen-flushed bucket while I considered possibilities. After thinking about different styles of beer in which I could use the grains, I settled on a Belgian quad. A high original gravity meant I could add a lot of base malts to minimize the problematic ingredients. A high final gravity meant the unfermentables might actually be appropriate for the style, and I thought the aroma and possible slight sweetness from the aromatic malt would actually complement the range of dark fruit flavors and phenols in a dark Belgian. In September, I took about a quarter of the grains and added more Pilsner and Munich malts, Cara Munich, Cara Vienna, flaked wheat, and a variety of Belgian candy sugars and syrups. For the first time ever, I brewed with a protein rest, beta rest, and alpha rest, hoping to maximize the fermentable sugars in my brew, which still included 8.5% Carapils and 8% aromatic malt. The brew day went smoothly. I pitched a big starter, and fermentation took off like a rocket. I racked after a month and became a little worried about a mild cough syrup character and a bit of menthol in the aftertaste. But upon bottling in January 2014, 4 months after brewing, those flavors seemed to mellow. Still, I wondered how the beer would age and whether it would really turn into a tasty Belgian quad. My answer came that October. On a whim, I submitted a couple bottles to a homebrew competition organized by the Mash Heads, a San Diego homebrew club. The competition was open only to Belgian strong ales, and my brew ended up winning. Not only did I use what we thought to be a giant mistake to win my first homebrew contest, but bottles from that batch became gifts for my friends who have been graduating from our PhD program over the past year. My brew, the Loquacious Doctor, continues to age in our respective cellars and closets, and I'm starting to plan how I might use more of the disastrous grain mix in a future brew. So there you go. That's in addition to being a good story, it came in at 494 words. So, so good job, Benjamin. I like that story because it had a happy ending. And it was kind of a brain teaser there as well because, if you have 38.5% Pilsner, 28.7% Carapils, 27.1% aromatic, and then 5.7% Munich, what do you do with that?
Grind it up and put it in your garden as fertilizer. Start over. But he found a better way, and that's why he's a homebrew hero.
There you go. So congratulations to Greg Niznik of Marietta, Georgia, and Benjamin Group from San Diego, California. And I'm sorry we're not going to take time to read all of the entries, just because we're not. We're usually for the homebrew disaster show we do try to read all the entries that we can, but this was a good competition. I liked everything that we got from people, and I certainly appreciate everybody who responded and who entered. And who knows, maybe we'll get to do this again next year. And of course, now that I've revealed the key to submitting a story that I like, we might have to change the theme for next year. So did you have fun reading the stories, Chris?
I did. I thought they were good. Except for the egregious word count error, I enjoyed the alien one quite a bit. But they were all good. They all, to various degrees, showed people, either a kick save for, a brew day gone bad, or, the recipe gone bad, or helping out for a party, or helping other people learn about homebrew. So yeah, I enjoyed reading all the entries.
And you will. We have plans to. We said on the entry form and in the podcast that we will be publishing at least some of the entries on beerandwinejournal.com. So we'll certainly publish the two grand prize winners.
Yeah.
And depending on editorial, your editorial decision, Chris, I'll leave it up to you how many more you want to publish.
Sure. I'll probably publish at least the ones that were read on the air and maybe a couple others. We'll just sort of see how long the post gets.
The good thing about doing something like that is it's just copying and pasting basically from from the entry forms. and there's no lack of space on the internet. It's essentially limitless.
It is.
Well, very good, sir. This has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate the American Homebrewers Association, Gary Glass, for letting us give away these prizes, and we hope to see Benjamin and Greg in San Diego.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, James.
Well, thanks again to Chris and to everybody who entered. Congratulations again to Greg and Benjamin. We hope to see you in San Diego. We're lining up interviews and experiments to record for Basic Brewing Radio. Lots of good stuff coming. It's always a good time full of good information and good beer, of course. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to James at basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. Please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. You can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store, too. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. If there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Full Sheet Mat Board Variety Pack, 25 assorted colors, 32 by 40 cream core, and Kong Air Dog Squeak Air Birthday Balls Dog Toy. Thanks again, and remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. And don't forget, you can also join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.